Excellent. Welcome. That's pretty good. Welcome to I can't even, what is the hall called? Gulgadaya. Thank you. Gulgadaya Hall. Welcome to Gulgadaya Hall on what is and always will be Gadigal land. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. My name is Lawrence Gibbons. I'm the publisher of the City Hub, the Inner West Independent, and the Star Observer. Please join me in welcoming our panel of candidates in the upcoming Inner West elections. Down the list, ALP candidate, Councillor Mark Drury for Ashfield. What Councillor, not Councillor yet, Philippa Scott for Leichhardt. Greens candidate, Kobi Shetty for Balmain. Liz Atkins for Stanmore. Our three independent incumbent candidates, Councillor Macri for Marrickville. Deputy Mayor Pauline Lockie for Stanmore. Councillor John Stamolis for Balmain. And our two wildcard candidates, Hinman of the Socialist Alliance for Stanmore, and Vera-Ann Hannaford, independent for Leichhardt. I'd like to thank the wonderful people at Addison Road Centre for allowing us to use this space. The amazing general manager, Rosanna Barr, and of course, Mark, who's instructed me on how to say the name of the hall. Mark Mordew, if you don't know him, is not only the communications manager, he's also the resident poet laureate. And he'll have something to say afterwards. I'd also like to introduce the City Hub Inner West Independent team who are here. We have our two news editors, Eva Baxter and Daniel DeSordo back there. Anyone who thinks that young people aren't interested in community news and issues, these kids are here to prove you wrong. They do my head in. Also, my able assistant, Mal Moody. The format that we came up with was we asked each of the major parties that endorsed candidates to nominate two candidates to represent their team. And so our two Labour candidates have been put forth, and here they are. The Green Party did the same thing, and here they are. Obviously, there are no Liberal endorsed candidates, so here they aren't. We also decided that we would invite the three incumbent candidates, councillors, because, well, A, they have a collective brain trust, and B, we knew who they were. And then we decided we needed to throw in a little bit of spice to keep it interesting, so we decided to invite two people from the opposite ends of the political spectrum. Of course, Hinman has been a fixture in Inner West politics since I got off the boat. And Vera-Ann Hannaford is a recovering Liberal Party member who also served as the mayor of Leichhardt Council. So we have everyone here for you. The format is pretty straightforward. I've asked the candidates to start with a 2-minute introductory remark. I've collected questions from the audience and the editorial team, and I'm going to put these questions to the panel. They're going to have 1 minute to answer. Now, we'll all know if it's going too long. I'm going to try to be sparing, because I'll get a headache. But here we are. And for those of you who are interested, after the forum, we have a special screening of Rats in the Ranks, which dates back to when the City Hub was launched. In first screening in 1995, filmed in 94, and for anyone who hasn't seen it, it is certainly a wonderful window into how Inner West politics works in the coalface of reality. So, without further ado, I would like you have Vera-Ann.
Can we ask for?
It's working.
Was it working?
Yes.
Can we ask for extensions on that talks?
Can you ask for extensions? No. Okay. Mark, without further ado.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thank you everyone for coming along. I just want to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation on whose land we stand and have gathered. and to elders past, present and emerging who are amongst us and perhaps listening as well online, and to a land that's never been ceded, and to recognise their sovereignty and their power and feeling that's with us today. As you can see around you, this hall has been repurposed as our emergency food relief hub for the last year and a half or more, in the wake of COVID and various lockdowns that communities have been dealing with in sometimes very different ways. Addison Road Community Organisation is pretty sort of plugged into the entire inner west and much further afield, politically, socially, and just in terms of feeding people. The Racism Not Welcome campaign raised the rate in terms of job seeker and the like. So it's a real pleasure and honour to work with City Hub today and be a presenter and be involved in the event and sort of take part in energising democracy in a positive way, and giving a little bit of power back to community, and also to recognise City Hub on its 26th birthday, because independent media, independent community groups and independent and green community spaces like this are becoming a bit more and more and more valued for a very good reason. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to get my stopwatch. I'm going to keep my bell in my hand. You have 2 minutes for your elevator pitch. I suggest we just go down the hall. Just do it. Left to right. Right? This way. Right? This way. Let's just do it. John, please, take it away. Thank you. Hold the line. Hold the line. Okay, go for it.
Welcome, fellow residents, and I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal people of the Inner West, their elders past and present. Ladies and gentlemen, it's fantastic being independent. And as you know, I'm about to face my 4th term, hopefully, as a councillor on the 2nd Inner West Council. My local experience goes back 24 years now. I started my first 10, 11 years in the resident precinct in Balmain, White Bay, and then 2008 I was elected to council. I'm seeking now my 4th term, as I mentioned, and I'm seeing key issues for the next council being about resolving some of our leadership tensions and leadership issues, and bringing you as a community into our council. I want to see greater resident participation. I want to hear the community voice more, not the political voice, the community voice. Many of you know who have listened to council meetings, I have a very strong focus on our financial management, because I believe that underpins what we can achieve on council, whether that be affordable housing, whether it be environment and sustainability. You name the policy, if we don't get our finances right, we don't deliver the services right. So that's very, very important to me. In terms of some key issues that are coming up, certainly in my ward, and I'm hoping that most of you are now learning about Callan Park. That's a massive thing that is coming up and facing us. State government want to change the Act. They want to take control of that area, and I believe that us as a community and a council should have the priority decision-making functions for that area. Since I have very limited time, I'd also like to mention that Councillor Macri and I authored a motion to give you a voice on de-amalgamation, or whether this merger continues or not. That is very important to me. You were never given a voice in the first place, and you now have a vote on the day, December the 4th, or if you're pre-polling from 22nd of November, you now have a voice, and you can state how you feel about the merger. You know how I feel about it. I'll be voting that we demerge, but you now have an equal voice, and it's time for that. Thank you.
Okay, to be fair to everyone, I will give you one 15-minute clap. 15 seconds, it may feel like 15 minutes, but 15 seconds clap, okay? Thanks for letting me work out the glitches.
afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here and thanks to the City Hub for putting this on. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. Why be a councillor, particularly an independent one? Well, it's a job, it definitely is, but it's more than a job. For me, it's like a calling to serve the community. It's not for money, it's not for self-betterment, it's to actually serve the community. My father started a barber shop in 1960 on Marrickville Road. He served the community through that way. I'm working in that same business now on Marrickville Road, serving the community, cutting their hair, working for the community, and having a great opportunity when someone has a haircut to actually talk to them and actually find out what's really going on the street. Not just listening to council reports and them telling you what's happening, but actually knowing yourself what's going on. That gives me a lot of encouragement when people come in and tell me when things are good, and it also disappoints me when things are bad. The large council is a challenge. It's a challenge for the community to be able to deal with, and that's why with Councillor Stamolis I brought forward the opportunity for the community to have their say. I could ramble on about my 16 years on council and the projects I've delivered, but I think you know that. You know that for 8 years we kept on talking about building a library at Marrickville, and it was talk. It wasn't until we actually worked out how to do it, and I led that charge with that. I'm very proud of that, and that stands there for the whole community. It'll be there for a very, very long time. And I'll just finish off by saying I hope you all support independence on council, because the one thing is keep it local, keep it simple, and keep the politics out of decisions, and you'll get a great council. Thank you.
Thanks, Lawrence. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are meeting today on Gadigal land and pay my respects to elders past and present. What a privilege it is to be here today and to be given the opportunity to represent this incredible community. I'm standing in Baludarri, which is the Balmain ward, and I can tell you that as a parent of 3 young kids, I know every inch of the ward. Forget about COVID restrictions, every playground, every patch of green space, every public toilet and every local pool within 5 kilometres was already hallowed ground. Now, because of COVID, the importance of open space and the livability of our neighbourhoods is felt so much more keenly than it was even just a couple of years ago. The Inner West has the second lowest ratio of public open space in the whole of Sydney, and it's a real priority of mine to work to improve and protect our beautiful parks and green spaces. Something that I've been really struck by is the amount of love and care that so many people who live here put into their neighbourhoods, and that can be looking after their local parks, doing bush care, running food pantries, and so many other things. And what I recognise is one of the most critical roles as a councillor is not just to come in with ideas and policies of your own, which of course we have, but to make sure that we listen and support and advocate for those people who are already in the community doing the work that they're doing. One of the main reasons that I'm running for council is not just to give back to my community, but because of the pressing need to tackle the climate crisis. So much time is spent lamenting the lack of action at a federal level, which is important, but I think that we really need to remember that local councils can be really powerful agents for change. And we can reduce our emissions by building a safe, well-connected bicycle network. We can electrify our fleet. We can get people out of their cars, get more solar on buildings, and heat our public pools with renewables instead of gas. I recognise that being an elected councillor is a privilege and a responsibility, and despite the difficulties of the previous term of council, I'm really optimistic that we can make it work better for the people that we represent. So I'm committed to working collaboratively and respectfully to make sure that local resident voices are paramount, and that this diverse kind of creative community just continues to get better and better. Thanks.
I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I've lived in the Inner West for over 20 years and brought up my sons here. I loved living in such a diverse and vibrant community, and I wanted to stay that way. I was a federal public servant for 33 years, working with both Labor and coalition governments. and for the last 6 years of my career, I was Deputy CEO at a significant Commonwealth agency. My expertise is in developing policy, setting strategy, allocating resources and monitoring performance, working within government but engaging with business big and small, with civil society and others to understand all points of view and take them into account to make the right decisions for our community. That might all sound very dry, but it's actually what the Local Government Act requires of councillors. It's a job description for people who are the members of the governing body of council. Being a councillor would be a continuation of my public service at a level of government where it's actually possible to make a difference. Sustainable, connected and diverse. Sustainable with an ambitious action on climate change, including stopping the destruction of our tree canopy, creating walkable neighbourhoods and increasing green spaces. Connected physically, easy to get around, on foot and by bike. Connected to each other, vibrant main streets, music and cultural festivals, outdoor spaces where we can engage with each other. And diverse. In order for us to have the sort of range of backgrounds of people, council really needs to get onto affordable housing. My first two priorities will be the tree DCP and action on affordable housing.
Thank you for having me. I too would like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the land of the Gadigal people and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. As Lauren said, I'm Pauline Lockie. I'm the Deputy Mayor and Independent Councillor for the Stanmore Damun ward. I'm also the only candidate in my ward who's running for re-election, which is a real indicator, I think, of how tough this term on council has been. But I decided to run again because even with the challenges we've had, I've seen how much you can drive real change as an independent when you can work across party lines, with council staff and with the community. That's the approach I took when I worked with our Inner West Multicultural Network to launch the Racism Not Welcome campaign that's now being rolled out across Australia. Thank you. With our LGBTIQ community to lead council's opposition to the so-called religious discrimination bills, hard to say. As part of the Greenway Steering Committee to deliver the missing links of this vital environmental and active transport connection. With local domestic and family violence organisations to get council to develop its first gender equity strategy. With local businesses and residents in Stanmore and Petersham to help them get organised to work with council, as well as with local artists and creatives to help protect our vital industrial and creative precincts. And of course, with hundreds of local residents like you to help get the outcomes you need from council. More recently, with the change of leadership that I've been part of, we've seen the beginnings of a more constructive and collaborative way of working within both the elected body and with council staff. And it's this approach that I can bring to the next term of council, regardless of the outcome of the demerger poll, because that's what we'll need to get our basic services back on track, to help local businesses and creatives recover from the pandemic, to deliver improvements to our parks, playgrounds, cycleways and public spaces, to fix our destructive tree removal policies and make sure you, our community, are at the centre of our decision making. And as an independent, I can do all of this without being distracted by or beholden to party politics, and that's why I'm asking for your vote in the Stanmore Damun ward.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here. I too would like to acknowledge that we meet on Gadigal land today. It always was, always will be Aboriginal land. What a joy it is to hear from my fellow candidates. I do think that this has been a really positive campaign, and it's wonderful to hear that everyone is committed to making the Inner West Council work in the future. That's what we're all asking you to do, is to trust us to make this council work. I am a lifelong local. I'm raising my family here in the Inner West as I was, because I'm committed to making the Inner West a home for everyone. I am committed to a vision of a truly inclusive Inner West, and that means lots of different ethnic and language backgrounds, making sure that our community is accessible for people with all different abilities and ages, but critically also that it's an inclusive environment for people of all different economic backgrounds. And to that end, we do need to work on our affordable housing policy, and I'm absolutely committed to strong levels of affordable housing commitment and then vigorously enforcing those affordable housing commitments. I am the president of the Sydney Secondary College Leichhardt PNC, and I'm a board member of the Metro Assist Migrant Resource Centre, which until recently was headquartered in Ashfield, and unfortunately, as a result of COVID, have had to move out of Ashfield, but still continue to work very strongly in the Inner West. And it's through those community organisations that I'm already working to deliver future and a vision of an inclusive Inner West. I am committed to upskilling and including people of all backgrounds in this community. Everything okay, Mark?
There's a little buzz going here. I'm pausing your time. You can make the extra buzz sign. Yeah. Dirty power.
Yeah. Dirty power. Apparently, well, dirty power in the room. Well, we could be working on a clean power future. I think that's something that we can all commit to. So I'm extremely proud to be part of this Labor team. Labor has been leading on this community for a long time. The delivery of the Ashfield Aquatic Centre, the refurbishment of the Dawn Fraser Paths are wonderful achievements under a Labor mayor, and I really look forward to a future where we can work to establish more community facilities with a really strong concentration on the services and infrastructure that the community needs. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Drury. I'm City Councillor representing Labour. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I'd like to pay respects to elders past, present and future. And I'd like us all to remember and know that this is, was and always will be Aboriginal land, and the sooner we get a treaty, the better. My approach and the approach to Labor in the Inner West is to focus on investing in our community public facilities. These are critical things for our community. They're critical social justice aspects of what we can do on council. We're also seeking to have the best possible services across the board. Council provides a range of services from childcare to picking up rubbish to cleaning footpaths to mowing verges. We want those services to be at the highest possible level. The reason we focus so heavily on investing in facility and the best possible services is because we believe that advantages those people in our community who need it most. The ability to go to a subsidised swim, to play on a subsidised field, or to go to a free library is something which advantages those people who have less in their pocket than others. I've run completely out of time. The other thing that we're very keen on is getting the basics right, having a strong approach to economic management and providing those services in an economically responsible way so that we can continue to look after our community into the future. I'm also very keen, and over the years on council I've become much more aware of our need to get real, practical, environmental solutions in our community. We have responsibility over waste, which is a huge environmental issue, responsibility over water, and also over our air as it relates.
Welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to see you all here, and hello everyone on streaming. I have a lot of experience in local government. I was 12 and a half years on Leichhardt Council, ending up being deputy mayor when the dreaded amalgamation occurred. I presented council's no amalgamation case at the public inquiry, and it was well received, and it was such a shame, it was such a farce, because it was already decided before we had the public inquiry. There were hundreds of people spoke against de-amalgamation, and I think there were 6 or 8 in favour over the whole afternoon and evening. I also voted to investigate legal action re-amalgamation. I think John might have put the motion up. Did you put that motion up in council? Yeah. I was a Liberal, as Lawrence said, but I have left the party. I'm quite disillusioned with the local members of the party, so I have no political ties. I must say, when I was on council, I did not always vote with my colleagues, because I believe in voting for the residents. I'm elected by the residents, not by my party. So that was not the way I went. I'm hard-working. I'm available day and night because I don't do any other job. I'm honest. Some people might think so, but as far as I know, I'm the most honest person I know. I'm intelligent, although if I'm standing for council, I wonder whether that's intelligence or not. But anyway, I'm a good listener. I will listen to the residents' problems and try to solve them. Can't always get a solution, but you can do your best, and you can take them to the staff and try to get them sorted out. So I've been called an activist when Clio magazine had their 100th copy. They had the 100 most memorable people in the area, and they called me an activist, so I was very proud of that. I support community consultation and participation, and I'm sorry to say, apologies to the councillors that are here, that Inner West Council does not do very much of that at all. It's been left by the wayside. When I was on council, I was chair of committees and deputy chair and members of other committees that the community belonged to. No strings attached, you could just turn up to the meetings. And I think that's the way it should be. I'm currently on some of the Inner West Council committees. You go to a meeting, you have no idea what's going to happen there. They ask you about something, and I always say, look, if you told me that beforehand, I could have looked into it to find the answer. But it's quite a waste of time. I also believe precinct committees should be reinstated, and also the committees that ran the community facilities, like the Balmain Town Hall. I noticed Kat Atkins here. She was on the Balmain Town Hall committee, and there was one at Annandale Community Centre and Clontarf and a number of other places, and they worked really well. I've always lived in Leichhardt. I'll never leave it. I love it. I'm passionate about it.
Thank you. Thank you, love. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one more comment. And I'm modest.
Okay, and last but not least.
I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation where we're meeting today, and thanks to Lawrence for organising this in the Addison Road Community Centre. I'm running to be elected in the Damun ward to help push the demerger campaign forward and other resident-initiated campaigns that expand democracy and community participations and decisions that affect our lives. The experience of the last 5 years since the forced merger of the Ashfield, Marrickville and Leichhardt councils has shown that what residents feared would happen, which was cuts to frontline services, rate rises, rights taken away from councils and also therefore residents. This is because the forced amalgamation of councils is part of the state government's plan to privatise, sell off community assets and to give developers a bigger say. In doing so, rights have been taken away from council. It was no coincidence that the forced amalgamation of our 3 councils happened as the Anti-West Connects campaign was becoming very strong. The Inner West is a diverse and progressive area. It's already brimming with resident energy and ideas. How that power is harnessed by council to make this place a more caring and strong voice for climate action, for housing rights for all, and against greed is my major concern. I'm a feminist, a unionist, a mum and a stepmum. I've raised a daughter here and I've been involved in a lot of local campaigns, including one against a coal seam gas drill site in Sydney Park, which we won. I'm a volunteer in Green Left and I've been a passionate climate activist my whole adult life. If elected, I guarantee I'll work hard for the community. I'm also working hard right now to promote the Yes to Demerge campaign, because if it receives a majority vote, the incoming council will have to work with the residents and the communities to force the state government to accept the people's will. Nothing good comes without a struggle, and I'm up for that. Thank you.
The first speaker to go under the time limit. You are my hero. Excellent. I didn't even have to ring the bell. Now, I realized I was a very bad moderator, that I didn't introduce each of the speakers before they took the mic. So I'm going to remind you all who our speakers are, because in the heated exchange of the debate, I want you to remember who to love and who not to love, according to your own opinion. So directly to my left is John Stamolis. To his left is Victor Macri. To his left is Kobi Shetty. Then we have Liz Atkins. Then we have Pauline Lockie. Then we have Philippa Scott. Then we have Mark Drury. Then we have the irascible Vera-Ann Hannaford. And last and certainly least, but my favorite right now, Pip Hinman to the very far left. Excellent. Okay. Now, and I remind you, for those of you who don't, who like to keep the scores: independent, green, independent, Labour, independent, recovered Liberal, and Socialist Alliance. Yes. Okay. Excellent. Now I have ready a list of questions. This is going to be. Hey, Mal. This one more. You take the Mal. You're even bitchier than I am. Good, excellent, thank you. All right, stop. You have your stopwatch on your phone? Excellent. It'll be hard for me to ask the questions. More questions pouring in. Oh my God, live stream. It's all happening here. They'll have to wait. So they get the way it works is this, okay? You get 1 minute. 1 minute. Mal will ring the bell at 45 seconds. If you keep going, he'll come and bite you. Excellent. And he hasn't had his rabies shots, have you? No. Excellent. Okay, good. So now, what's that? No.
Yeah.
He's got no jabs. He's got every bad thing under the sun. That's why he works for me. Okay, now. I collected questions from far and wide, and I put them into food groups. And so we're going to start first with a couple of questions about the environment. And everyone has 1 minute to answer. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. It is a democracy. But we want to hear from you. And part of the idea of having different candidates from the same party is that I think that we as a community deserve and should know what individuals think. And so I'm hoping that we hear a broad spectrum of opinions. So now, question number 1. There is a lack of green space in the Inner West. As well, tree policy has been a controversial issue on the existing Inner West Council. What additional actions and policies would you support to improve greening in the Inner West?
Use common sense.
Just hands up.
Hello.
Go.
Hi. I'm not sure whether this is a sort of first come, first serve or a race to respond to
Everyone
the
gets
question.
one answer. You get one answer, so this is your shot at this.
Oh, fabulous.
Okay, and
Thank
then
you.
we only go if we're lucky, we won't run out of time.
All right, fantastic. Well, I think that my answer on this is going to be relatively brief when it comes to trees. And also, I don't believe in wasting time when a number of people might agree, so I'm going to say that this is the Labor answer for both of us. Labor's commitment is to $5 million worth of tree planting in the first term of a council and $2 million recurrent funding for every term after that. We would also like to experiment with microforests. Now, what microforests are is basically taking every possible block of vacant land and planting trees densely close together. It supports flora and fauna, it supports biodiversity. That was a very quick 1 minute.
You're 15 seconds still.
Oh, now I'm wasting time. But that is our policy. Those things will be what takes us through into rebuilding, regenerating a really healthy canopy and replacing trees that are destructive, non-native with native and appropriate trees that won't grow into your pipes or under the foundations of your garage, but something that is appropriate to the local area.
So the first order of business for me as a new councillor will be to move a motion about the current tree management, DCP, to have it reversed in a sense, but let's make a more sensible approach to trees on private property. Yes, there are trees that are a problem and we need ways to deal with that. But at the moment, to have an automatic ability to remove your tree if it's within 200 metres of your house is having a...
2 metres.
2 metres. Sorry, 2 metres is having a detrimental effect on our tree canopy. Even though council has been planting trees on public land, we are well down on our tree canopy to what it was 2 years ago when the DCP was changed. We totally support what Labor's saying about planting more trees, and the idea of microforests certainly sounds something that we should investigate and perhaps support with them. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, look, I've been very strongly on the record as being really highly distressed actually about the changes that were brought into the tree DCP. And for those who don't actually know what we're talking about when we say tree DCP, they're the rules that apply to removing trees from private land, essentially, any land that's not public. What we saw was the process by which those changes happened was not great, and as a result, that DCP has actually got some unlawful provisions in it now, particularly around the automatic 2 metre rule that Liz mentioned earlier, because there's no ability within the current rules for council officers to be able to assess whether or not that tree removal is necessary or if other solutions could be found. It clashes with state laws on that. And we've lost a staggering 14 hectares of canopy across the inner west in the year since that policy was introduced. We gained 6 hectares on public land, but we lost 20 on private land. And I think that really shows the danger of relying only on street plantings in parks and footpaths and roads and so forth. Absolutely, we should be doing that. That is a solid policy and we are doing that, but we're never going to be able to catch up if we don't also correct the imbalance we've got now and protect our canopy on private land.
Yeah, I think increasing the green space is absolutely important in this climate emergency that we're all in. And I think in the inner west we've got a lot of residents that would be willing to play a much greater role in increasing the tree canopy. I know in my local area there's just a lot of plots where trees used to be, and I know you can go to council and you can log that and all the rest of it, but I think there are ways of council working directly with residents to get the trees in a lot faster. I'm also a very big supporter of verge gardens. Honestly, around the time of lockdown you saw them springing up around where I live, and I think with a bit more encouragement also residents would get involved in that. Obviously we need a lot more canopy, and I think there's some interesting ideas that the Wollongong Council has been looking at, increasing tree canopy. Now, on the question of tree removal, obviously, I think a common sense approach has to occur here because there have been a lot of trees planted in the wrong spots. And there are elderly and frail people that can't manage some of those things also. So, yes, I think there are solutions there.
Our council area has the second lowest amount of open space. So it's very important that Council keep on supporting the Cullen Park Act and keep that land as open space. I think it's a shame when too much open space is made into playing fields. I know we need playing fields too, but we also need room for recreational space, for people to walk, for people to ride their bikes and enjoy being outside in the sunshine. I'm always concerned about the gardens that have been, I don't know what you call them, that have been put on the roads. They are not all planted with native plants, and I really think it's important that we have our own foliage, not some overseas plant planted there. In our street there were some beautiful gardens when they were first planted, and because the plants started to grow they were all chopped out and others put in that were brought in from overseas, so it's quite a shame there too. So the environment is very important. We need to green the area, but we also need to keep our green areas clean. Some of our parks are getting a bit tired looking, and the grass verges aren't being mowed quite as frequently as they used to be. And I was actually talking to a person a couple of days ago when I was handing out my leaflets, and the grass verge in front of his house was that high with weeds, and it was absolutely disgusting. So not only trees, native plants, but also looking after what we do have.
Does anyone else want to speak to the guests? Go on. John and Vic, talk together. Go on.
Thank you. Most of you know that I'd like to do a lot of analysis about our community, about the pressures on our community. And one of the things that I recently did on Facebook was one on open space. With 804 people per hectare of open space, we have the second lowest open space ratio of all 130 councils in New South Wales, possibly the second lowest ratio in this nation. Now, Councillor Vic Macri picked up on that, and we co-authored a motion, a very important motion on one of the previous council meetings about looking into how we can address this problem. Over the last 5 years, the population of the Inner West increased by over 13,000 people. As a statistician, I can tell you that the next 5 years is going to pump up by another 13 to 15,000. And you can imagine where these ratios are heading in the future. I was surprised it didn't get media pick up this motion because it's a very critical motion. On the trees issue, one of the things that I put forward on council was I want to see tree plantings increase, certainly in the public space and certainly over hard surfaces. That is, by doing that along our footpaths and hard paved areas, we increase the tree canopy, we attempt to reduce the urban heat island effect, and we beautify our neighbourhood. All wins for us.
A couple of meetings ago I moved a motion based on John's statistics on our lack of open space, and what I found was we didn't have a strategic plan to increase our open space. So you know what they say about failing to plan, that's planning to fail. So I put the wheels in motion to have a strategic plan developed where we can increase our open space and where we need it. On the tree issue, it's very simple. The first report that came to us on trees on private property was our tree canopy was in rapid decline. We had to change something to encourage people to plant trees. The motion I put forward was bastardised, and that's the only way I can put it, by multiple amendments, and then it failed to lose what it was supposed to do. So it was not about allowing people to rip out trees willy-nilly, it was about people in difficulty when trees were too close to properties with a lot of heritage homes that were being affected by trees, allowing them to remove and replace. And actually I clearly remember one of the speakers who was against the motion, when he came and heard the actual discussion, he actually said, holy smokes, what you're saying is making common sense. We want to encourage people to plant trees. If you get a tree that's grown wrong or inappropriate, then you need to be able to have the ability to replace it. And that's what the motion was designed to do. But it was changed on the floor by multiple parties, then they walked away from it. Well, if you wanted to judge it, you should have left it as it was, and it would have worked. And it would have been legal. That's all I'll say, thanks.
And last and certainly not least.
I'm really glad that when we start on the new term of council, should I be elected, that one of the first things that we're going to be looking at is the tree DCP and what's actually happened. As Pauline and several of the other speakers have said, and Liz, the DCP has seen an enormous amount of canopy removed on private land, and it doesn't matter how many trees you plant on public land, although it's really important, and I'm really glad to see that we've got millions of dollars in the budget to do that. The nature of our neighbourhoods is that they're close together, and we really depend on people to have trees on their property to make sure that we're not going to live in a hot suburb. The other issue that's often not really considered is the understory, and that's something that I think we need to concentrate a little bit more in our public areas. It's really important to increase the canopy, but the understory is one of the most critical parts of actually encouraging biodiversity in our local area, and it's something that's missing. Since we've had the Roselle interchange happen, we have lost the 2 nesting grounds that we had in our ward for the Vera-Ann, and there are really appropriate places that we could be concentrating on connecting wildlife corridors, planting that understory and encouraging wildlife back to our area. So I think this is twofold. We need to make sure that we're looking after our existing tree canopy and trying to grow it by planting trees publicly and encouraging residents to replace the trees that are problematic that need to be removed, but we also need to look a little bit lower and think about what the wildlife needs to make sure that we're encouraging biodiversity and nature back into our areas, and we don't end up with really built up suburbs and no wildlife left behind.
Excellent. So now we've gotten through one question. See what I mean? We're gonna turbocharge this. Next question on the environment. 3,000, and then they're coming in far and fast and wide. So let's speed it up. If anyone needs coffee, we'll have to arrange it. What will candidates do to increase the ability to get around the inner west on a bike?
Well, Labor councillors met yesterday with the Inner West Bike Coalition, and we have been working with them and taking their ideas about getting community support for increased wayfinding and cycleways in our area. So we met with Bike Marrickville, Bike Leichhardt and Ash Bikes, and they were very supportive of our program to increase wayfinding around public schools. Now, this is a program that's been really successfully trialled in the Stanmore Damun ward, and is something that we should be rolling out across the LGA. And I'd be particularly interested in having that type of a program concentrated around some of our high schools as well, particularly since the light rail now is going to be down for 18 months. We need to be encouraging teenagers who are coming from a suburb or two away to be able to ride safely to school. Council needs to bring the community along with us, including residents and business owners who may be affected by parking issues, in order to make sure that we have appropriate cycleways and that those cycleways are safe and fully integrated into our community, so that we are, we're really looking at ourselves as a community that is on a blue-green grid where there is, a range of different options to get around. Remembering, of course, that every cyclist is also a pedestrian and also a driver, that we are embodying a number of identities. None of us are just one type of person. So making sure that we aren't setting up any type of conflict between those groups is going to be really critical to making sure that the community is accepting of different ways to get around the community, including those cycleways. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to think of a different approach to dealing with cycling. One of the big issues with cycling is when we construct dedicated cycleways, we take out all the residents' parking and people get annoyed with that. I'd like a more staged approach where we have shared paths with the footpaths to start off until we build up the volume, critical mass. We have a situation at the moment down Livingston Road where we've just put a section of cycleway in, and I don't know what's gone wrong, but It's terrible. Buses cannot pass each other anymore. Vehicles are having near head-on collisions. It's not safe for bike riders as well. Bike riders are complaining, and bike riders won't use it. Commuter cyclists don't want to ride on cycleways. They want to ride on the road. They want to ride the vehicles. Now, to make it safe, what we really need to do is where we're headed, and that's actually reduce the speed limits on our streets, so the bikes can actually feel safe. As a bike rider myself, nothing nerves me more than a car flying past me close at 60 kilometres. It puts you off, it makes you nervous. So we need to get the speed limits down. And a number of our local streets, which are small residential streets, need to be utilised. And I look forward to engaging with the community to see what they think of turning those streets into 10-kilometre shared zones, particularly around the areas around Tempe, where the people are parking two wheels on the footpath and the footpaths aren't accessible. We need to make it safer for the bikes to be on the road wherever they want to go, not just on a bike path. That's what I was saying. Thank you.
Okay. Go on, Paul.
I'll try and be fast because I know we're running out of time. I'm very supportive of more cycleways. We know that riding on the road is great if you're an experienced cyclist, but we know that from Transport for New South Wales' own research, for example, around 70% of Sydney-siders have said that they would ride more if there were safe, separated and connected cycleways for them to use. Then they're safe for everybody, whether it's children, whether it's elderly people, whether it's people like me who are frankly terrified of riding around in cars. And we've seen that some of that starting to happen over the last couple of years. And one of the things I'm really excited, in my own ward, for example, we've got the Cycleway and Railway Parade, which has preserved almost all the parking and has slowed the street down as well. That used to be a street that trucks would barrel down, and they can't do that anymore because the lanes are narrower. The footpath's we've got a footpath on the other side, we've got a great cycleway that is going to be a connector through to the City of Sydney and further west in the other direction. Livingston Road will also be connected up to other cycleways when we install those missing links. And one of the things I'm really excited about with the next term of council is we have over $20 million worth of cycleways in the budget. And I think it's going to take councillors who are really dedicated to building those cycleways, because we've seen how it's akin sometimes to saying you're going to build a nuclear reactor in a street when you say you're bringing a cycleway through. But once they're there, they get used, the streets are better, they're calmer, they're better for everybody.
And I'm going to trust you, Vera-Ann, I'm going to trust you.
Bicycle riders are very passionate about riding bikes, but people who don't ride bikes are very passionate about people who do ride bikes and who do the wrong thing. So there are a lot of really good cycle routes in our area, but there's also a lot more scope to make routes safer, both for cyclists and for pedestrians and for drivers. We have a lot of back lanes that are not used very much, that would be a lot safer route than going along some of the main roads. And I think that we should look more carefully at the way we do channel the way bicycle riders ride for their safety, and also use some of our underutilised areas.
Good.
Yeah, I'm a bike rider and have also been doored by a car, so I know the feelings of being very nervous. And they're very narrow streets in Damun ward, and very busy, and some of them have become rat runs as well. So, I mean, I think we all agree that there needs to be more bike paths, but I think we also got to tackle this problem of how do bike riders ride on roads as well, and how do drivers deal with cyclists. So I think council can play a bigger role in that. Obviously, this is an area that there's a lot of through traffic. So it's obviously, we're not just talking about our local residents. I think we'd have to get the state government on board, because I think there still is this problem of road rage. I often feel like I'm a target on a bike rather than someone that they slow down. I noticed in our area too, a lot of parents take their kids to school on bikes. There's an extended bike, so it is possibly very dangerous. My street's become a rat run since Western X was built. So I think there's a lot that council can do working with state government, and we do need to do it because finally cycling is coming in as active transport, and we have to adjust.
Okay. Go on, Kobi.
I just hope that we can get this idea out of our heads that cyclists are all 50-year-old men wearing Lycra. There's a lot of cyclists like me. I've got a cargo bike. I take my kids on it. I don't want to get in my car. And so much of the things that we do are local, and they're that bit too far for either my kids to ride their own bikes or for us to walk. And so jumping on the cargo bike is a really good solution for us, and we love it. But there are so many directions that I do not feel safe riding with my kids, and we really need to fix it. Separated cycleways are a really important part. I know that reducing the speed limit also has a part to play, because there are streets that we're not going to be able to always put separated lanes in. But the separated cycle network is really, really important. And if you look at the Netherlands, they were never always this bicycle mecca. They built the lanes and they changed the infrastructure to put bikes first, and it worked. And, we've got this hierarchy that we're supposed to use in planning in council that says bikes and pedestrians come first, then public transport, and then cars. And we're not seeing that playing out in the way that planning's happening. And so I think that what we really need to do, and something that I got out of our meeting too with the Inner West Bicycle Coalition, who had just so many wonderful ideas, was that we need to make sure that we're embedding someone who is focused on cycling into these planning teams and into these areas in the council that are actually making the decisions and changing the way that they're designing the city. So for me, I think we just really need to make sure that we do focus on trying to get as many people on the road as we can, because it's better for people that don't cycle as well. There's less traffic, there's less emissions, there's less hassle parking. It's good for the whole community.
I would like to see an increase in uptake of cycle riding, and I think that's the important thing. And this is where council can work at achieving that. And that is we look at the cycling paths that we put in place and deliver those to key centres. Deliver them to our sporting fields, deliver them to our aquatic centres, to our shopping villages, and those places that we know people go to a lot. We know then they'll use the bike more than the car, and also I'm an avid walker, so I'd like to see that increase far more. But I'd like us to be very strategic and direct those paths to where we know people will use them most and they'll want to ride. Additionally, for the more extended paths, we've got to work more closely with the other councils around us to make sure there's seamless transport for cyclists. Thank you.
Has everyone that has anything to say said something? Excellent. Next question. You see how I begged for answers? Okay. Now we come to the sticky question of demerging. Now this is a multiple choice question all in one. Do you think Inner West Council should demerge? If yes, why? If not, why? And if not, will you vote? Will you put up a motion for de-amalgamation if it passes? If it's passed, I hope you support it as a councillor, even though you didn't want it to happen. Okay. Anyone want to speak? Okay. Vera-Ann, why not?
I'll say yes, 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 yes. De-amalgamation, bring it on. We need smaller areas so that councils can actually administer them better. Not a huge council area that covers a couple of state seats. That's not local. We need local. We need to de-amalgamate. When I get on council, I will move a motion, or I will vote for a motion to de-amalgamate, because I think it's very important. As I said, I presented the case for Leichhardt Council as Deputy Mayor. Now, I had staff advising me what to say, and I said, no, I'm going to give the case that the residents want. And I was given all the statistics and different things, and I said, no, that's not what they want. They don't want to merge with other councils. I have to say what they want to say, and so I still believe that we should go back to our three councils.
Labor view was when the merger was forced upon us, that we believed that residents should have had a right to have a vote and a say at that time. It was a position prosecuted by 3 Labor mayors, and we lost. We now believe, now the question of demerger is going to the people to decide. If people vote strongly in favour of that, then obviously we as elected representatives will prosecute that case with the state government. I personally believe it is too late to try and unscramble this egg.
No, it's not.
Well, sorry, this is my belief.
It's all right.
You may have a different belief. I respect your right to have a different belief. I believe that it is too late to unscramble the egg, and I did not support us going to do that because to a vote at this point. We are having the vote. Let people decide. We have very clear information on the website, on the council website, in relation to the pros and cons of the merger. I'd urge people to have a look at that.
Is it though?
Okay. Go on, John.
Ladies and gentlemen, whether you're looking at council's finances, whether you're looking at our services or anything else, the merger has not worked. This was put together in the wrong way. It was a very flawed approach to intergenerational or generational reform of local government. Simply put a ring around any 3 councils and you've got it. That is not good reform of local government. And in fact, looking very carefully at this, we were the only 3 inner city councils to be merged. There's a big question mark about the performance about the commentary, about the challenge and contest that those 3 councils made, Leichhardt, Ashfield and Marrickville. Very poor, no other city council was merged at all, our 3 were, and we're not getting the results for it. I think it's time to ask you now what your opinion is, and this is why Councillor Macri and I have put forward this demerger poll, and to think that this is a key topic for our community 5.5 years after the merger took place means that we are in serious problems, and it means that our community are concerned about it, that 5.5 years later this is a priority question for you that you'll be answering. Thanks.
I think the most important thing is that the community is getting a chance to have their say. There's obviously a lot of the community that believe, like I do, that a yes vote is the right way to go, because what we've lost our local. We've lost the number of councillors who understand the area that we live in. I think that councillors don't try to understand other wards and the issues there, but I think the community feels like they've lost that. I don't think the economies of scale that were expected have actually been achieved. To the extent that they have been, we don't need to lose those if we de-amalgamate. We can keep shared services like our libraries, where it's wonderful that we can order books from across the whole current LGA. There's no reason why councils can't work together to achieve savings and have more effective services. But that idea that we've lost our local, a lot of people also perceive that we've got a diminution in the services we receive. Our streets aren't as well maintained. Some people feel that they've lost things like their scheduled rubbish pickups, while some people like the new Let's Book, others don't. So there are all sorts of things that people think are worse. They're worse off with. So I'll be voting yes to de-amalgamation, but I really want people to understand that it's the role of councillors. If the answer is no, then we get on, we work together to make this council work.
Pauline,
Thanks. Look, like I think pretty much everybody in this room, I was fiercely opposed to the forced merger of the councils, and I was really disappointed that the former councils didn't legally challenge the merger in the courts, because we know that every council that did that, and that includes the neighbouring councils that John mentioned that weren't merged, actually won the right to stay separate, and they're in a much better position, I think, as a result of it. I've always felt really strongly that our community deserved to have a say on whether or not we stayed merged. I took that position to the last election. I voted for it consistently over this term of council, and I'm glad we're having the opportunity now to hear from the community and know what it is that you think. And I know that regardless of whatever happens with the outcome of that poll and that vote, I am very committed to carrying out the wishes of our community. If it's a yes vote, then I would want to see us in the first meeting of council after that's been decided, move forward with the process that we would then need to follow, which is obviously because it's not the decision that doesn't lie in our hands, we would have to prepare a business case that would go to the Boundaries Commission, and I would want that business case to be as strong as possible, and then it goes to the minister to decide. And I think if it's a no vote, what we've got to really take on board is the fact that we wouldn't be in this position if people felt like they were getting the service and the attention and the ability to be involved in the council as they should be having. We wouldn't have had that. I think it's a real shame that we didn't have, for much of this term, leadership that was really focused on that collaborative approach. And we saw, as a result, a lot of infighting, a lot of divisiveness, a big churn of our general managers and CEOs, and no organisation can succeed when the senior management is constantly revolving. So I would be determined to repair that if it's a no vote.
Yes, I'm in favour of demerging and encourage people to get the Residents for De-Amalgamation leaflet, if you haven't seen it already. It is being taken up around the local government area, along with those signs. We've got a few if you'd like to take that. Of course, obviously, if residents don't vote for this, that's it. I think that's clear. I'd like to tell you too that Greg Warren, who's the Labor Shadow Minister for Local Government, said very explicitly on Tuesday at a statewide launch of a new alliance called Demerger New South Wales Alliance, DNA, that Labor's position remains for residents to have a say. Labor's position remains that the forced amalgamation of councils was a disaster. They're not my words, they're his. His words are up on the Residents for De-Amalgamation Facebook page. You can go and listen to that. I'm not in favour of demerging for some nostalgic reason. I've been living here for some time and I like Marrickville because it's Marrickville. Obviously, there's connected communities right across the council. I'm in favour of demerging the council because I think it gives residents a stronger opportunity to stand up to the state government's forced corporatisation of virtually every single public asset that exists. They don't care if councils go broke. They'll just tell council to sell off that building, that depot, that whatever. They don't really care. They honestly don't care. But this is part and parcel of this state government that is going to try and remove everything. Now we hear it's graveyards. They're going to try and privatise some graveyards. Now, I mean, it honestly beggars belief. So I think the community in this area is up for it, up for a fight. This is not going to just be, yes, there's a change in the legislation. The government will pay for it ostensibly. We know what this government is like, the state government. We'll have to fight it all the way. I would hope that the incoming councillors take 51%, not a big majority, 51% say they want a demerger. The council has to work hard with residents to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Yeah, as John said, John and myself actually moved the motion about this to give the opportunity for the community to have their say. Basically, this is not a decision in councillors' hands. This is a decision in your hands. And it's not enough for myself and John and Pip to run around the streets letterboxing people with brochures and putting up signs. It's up to you and the community to go out there. If you believe this is what you want, you need to work for it. Nothing comes for nothing. You need to tell your friends, you need to go out there, you need to network, because that's the only thing that's going to make the people aware, because there's a lot of people in the community out there that don't know. And that's why we need to get the message out there. I was disappointed that with the messaging that went out from council, it was letterboxed, I saw it. It was on paper that was very absorbent. It was delivered on a rainy day, half hanging out the letterbox, and you know what happens? It was like toilet paper, it's been right through the water, and then that's it. No one will be able to read that information. So it's up to you, the community, to get out there and let the people know they have an opportunity. This is your chance, and this is your council, your decision. Not 15 people you elect, it's in your hands. Thank you.
Any final statements on this? Okay, excellent. Now I'm going to jump ahead to a more colourful topic, local politics. Since amalgamation, Inner West Council has been marred by infighting, controversy, and general unpleasantness. For new candidates, what has drawn you to council and into this environment? And for returning candidates, how do you plan to change the combative culture if you're elected for another term? Anyone for therapy? Pauline?
Everyone's laughing, going, "Oh, the incumbents, they should answer this first." Look, I think I covered this in the opening speech that I had. And look, I have to say, as somebody who's been, very much wrapped up in some of those attacks and so forth, it's really depressing how much I've heard from my fellow colleagues, and I know myself, that we've experienced anxiety, depression, mental health issues as a result of this. And it's ridiculous, because what we should be here for is actually doing good for the community. It shouldn't be this dramatic, but there's only so far your ambition should be taking you. You should be focused on the council and working well here. But I think, as I mentioned in my speech, what I really want to be able to do, and I think as an independent we are often well placed to do this, is to be able to work across different party lines, to be able to work in that very collaborative fashion with the community, because the council is not our plaything, it is there to service our local community, and to work collaboratively with council staff as well. I don't want to see a situation continue where we get general managers walking out and it's in the paper that they've done that because they've fallen out with particular people on council. That is an absurd situation for any council to find itself in. So that is definitely what I would want to see happen on this next term of council, that we work together. It doesn't mean we have to agree all the time. There's a reason that there are 15 of us, is to get that diversity of views coming through in the decision making. But we shouldn't be destroying each other as a result of it.
Okay, Vera-Ann?
I've got a solution. Pistols at dawn. Politics shouldn't come into local government. It's local. I would like to think that councillors go onto council to represent the residents. The residents are the council, not the staff, not the council itself. The residents are the important people. So councillors are there to represent them. So they should not be standing up in council and saying their own views. They should be out talking to you, finding out what you want, and carrying out your instructions.
Okay, I'm going to go here because I saw him out of the corner of my eye.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I first voted in a local government election I think it was about the age of 19 in Adelaide, I saw about 5 or 6 candidates on the sheet. None had a political party name next to them. That is the way it still happens for 90% of Australians at a local level. 90% of Australians see a set of names. Sydney, however, and a few up and down the coast, it's absolutely different. It's party politics at the local level. And you can see that in the results in the inner west. In fact, we already know that Labor's going to get 5 up. We already know the Greens are going to get 5 up. We know 10 of the 15 councillors are basically elected. We know that. It's a party political council, a party political system. I would love to see a day forward when in fact the Inner West chooses to go more independent and choose local residents who love their area. And I know Pauline, Vic, value and love their area. Setting up a council at the local level in terms of party politics does split, does divide. That will never change, and it never has changed in the past 38 years that I've been living in the Inner West. Thanks.
Thank you. I would like to assure Councillor Stamolis and Macri that I am a local resident who loves her community, so feel in no doubt about that. I also feel very grateful to have the Labor values informing my activism in the community. Those values of inclusion, equality and progress are what really drives me forward, and they inform the work that I do in the community. I absolutely agree that what residents want from us is a council that is focused on them. I can't tell you, the number of times that people have said to me that they would like the council to stop talking about the council. When I'm out on the street, people want to hear about what we're doing about services and infrastructure. They want to know about planting trees and cycleways. No one is coming up to me on the street corner and saying, let's have 3 mayors. Let's have another conversation about the council and the structure of the council. They just want us to be dedicated to them. I really hope that this is the last time that we do have a conversation that is about the council and the only conversations that we have going forward about what we can deliver for residents.
Yeah, I think you're living in a dream if you think there's no politics on council because people call themselves independents. That's my first question. Secondly, yes, I think there's been some bad practices that have crept in. I don't know about all councils, but I've been on my share of the Zoom meetings this term. And it's not, the thing is that differences are okay. Differences are inevitable. Differences, that's why we have a vote. That's why majority, we work on the democratic principle of majority. But I think the way the differences were expressed was not okay. So, maybe meeting practice has to be looked at. I'm interested in the ideas of residents having a way bigger say in council. I really think that would bring councillors back to, the grassroots, the coal face, and remind them that actually this is what they're supposed to be doing the job, who they're trying to be doing the job for. So, some of this was pioneered back in the 70s and 80s. It's not new to people, the whole idea of residents coming to council, having their issues discussed with them, not in 3 hours' time. Agendas that are practical, realistic, precinct committees, a motion has gone to council about that. I think there could be more structures for residents to play a much bigger role, particularly in this area where people are so engaged already. There are committees going on every goddamn issue, which is fantastic, but I think that has to be more reflected in council. So yeah, more transparency, more accountability will change, I think, the modus operandi in council.
Hard to disagree really with what anybody has said. As to why I want to get involved in a council that has had this reputation, for me, coming to council will be informed by the Greens' values of peace, trust and respect. I'm not coming to council as a politician. I totally agree, council is not the place for party politics. Council is the place where we all work together, build relationships to make the right decisions for our community. And we might not all agree, we might not all want one decision, but we all need to work together to work out what that right decision for the community is. We need to listen to each other with respect. There will always be different views. Like there are different views around de-amalgamation and other issues around the LGA at the moment where, you know, particularly on social media, it can become quite nasty. Actually, we can all listen to each other with respect, understand each other's positions, and then councillors need to take that, work with staff, work with the community. And I agree with Pip, we need way more means for the community to have their say to reach the right decision.
Any final words? Some love and peace, and excellent. So let's go to the next contentious issue. Someone had the nerve to ask, should Labour and the unendorsed Liberal candidates do a deal and select the next mayor? So now it's out there. Anyone want to give an answer? Mark.
Yeah,
Take your mask off and go in.
Once we are elected, the Labor councillors will form a caucus and we will consider what we do in terms of the Merrill.
I'll take that as a no comment. You want to give it another comment, Philippa?
No, thank you. The Labor councillors have a united position and our caucus will be determined by the caucus.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment? Go on.
My previous answer discussed the nature of politics at the local level, that most Australians don't have a bar of it and don't want it, don't see it as productive, and don't see it as a means for a council working together, community members coming together to make good decisions for them. A Labor-Liberal coalition at the local level is inexplicable. Try seeing it at the state level. Try seeing that at the federal level. It is totally inexplicable. And this is what I'm saying. The effect of politics at the local level is highly divisive and very unusual and difficult to explain, as you know, from the previous term. Thanks.
Anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, go on.
As a constituent, before I got really involved in local politics, the most disappointing thing to me with the Liberal and Labor arrangement was that it wasn't a reflection of what the public were voting for. We have 15 councillors, 12 of them arguably are progressive, and you know, a Labor-Liberal alliance just does not reflect what people are voting for. And I think that this sort of infighting that's been happening between the Greens and Labor has got to stop. I'm not interested in fighting with the Labor Party. I think we've got way more in common. As you can tell from what we've been discussing today, we've got so many commonalities that we can use to try and get good outcomes for residents. And I don't want to see us trying to one-up each other and see who can sort of get the most cut through when we're trying to achieve really similar aims. So I would like to see a council going forward that actually reflects the vote of the community, where if we have 12 progressives again on the council, that they are leading the council together and working collaboratively and able to disagree respectfully, which I think is something that's been really missing over this last term of council.
Anyone else? Vic, you want to go there? Huh? Go for it.
Yeah, it's interesting when people talk about, you know, disruptive council meetings. Turn them on, go back, they're all on there for you to see. Look at where the disruption comes from. It doesn't come from one particular place, it comes from all across the chamber, and you'll see some usual suspects there stirring the pot and making a lot of noise. But I find this strange when there's commonality of the fight about the leadership. The mayor is one vote. That's what he is. He's one vote. If someone is away, he has a casting vote.
Or she.
Or she, sorry. The mayor or the mayoress, sorry. And so, that's fine, sorry. So, it's really incumbent on the councillors. If the mayor is putting up the wrong stuff, well then you don't vote for it. It's as simple as that. It's very easy. And what you'll find, look at the minutes and you'll see the majority of decisions, Kobi's right. The Labor and Greens always vote together. So how do we then complain about who's on top? if we're going to be different, we have to be able to say we're different and stop any behaviour that goes on in that chamber. I mean, I was a victim of attacks and assaults and demanding to see my birth certificate. And down the back there, sitting there, is the nurse that actually delivered me when I was born in King George V. I was accused of actually saying I wasn't born in Australia. I mean, is that the level of council? Is that the level of debate you want? Well, look at the councils you're putting there and make your decision.
You haven't spoken to this one. You haven't spoken to this. Wow, it's a blur. Go.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think the mayor in this setup actually has quite a lot of power, and I think the meeting code of practice has to be looked at. I don't know whether councils have the ability to do that or it has to be a state government thing, but I think it's important that this council really looks at how whoever is in that job, look at their job description. I mean, their job description should be about making this thing work. And from everything that I've heard on listening to council meetings, you know, it's not good to editorialise on everybody's opinion. I think a mayor has to play the job of actually getting decisions for the residents. So that's my impression, is that the meeting code of practice has to be checked and looked at. And I mean, just because this mayoral thing has come up, I mean, there has been a move to try and get a four-year term for a mayor, as if that is the most democratic thing to do. Not in the current system, it's not. Absolutely not. Not with no accountability and transparency. Absolutely not. If I was able to wave a magic wand, I'd change the mayor every 6 months so that everybody had the experience of welding a team.
Just following on from what Pip said, the mayor should be representing the council, not representing him or herself. And I think sometimes they forget that. Just the same as councillors aren't representing themselves or their party, they're representing the people. The mayor is representing the council, and that should be it, not politics.
Okay. Anyone else? Go on.
Look, I think John probably summarised my thoughts on the actual question very well, so I won't repeat that. I would say, in terms of the code of meeting practice, that a lot of that is set by the state government, but we can go over and above and add things to it if we like. But we can have the finest words in the world in that code of meeting practice, and if people choose to ignore them, then it's not going to matter. It's about that basic level of respect. And I would say that one of the things, as I alluded to in my opening speech, one of the things I think we have started to see over these last few months, even though it's been a short changeover of time, is what that kind of model could look like in the next term of council, and should look like. Because we have seen a situation where motions are put up and there is an effort to move towards a consensus towards them. And often, a lot of the time, a lot of the conversations we should be having about these motions shouldn't be happening in the chamber. They should be happening beforehand. So if we have questions about what somebody is trying to do, if we know that we can agree with 95% of it, which is usually the case on every motion that comes to council. If we know we can agree on 95% of it, but it's that last 5% where we need a bit of negotiation, a bit of time, a bit of understanding, then we can have those discussions beforehand, because the meeting should be the time we're making decisions for the community. It shouldn't be the time where we're thrashing out details of things, because that's when bad decisions get made.
Final statements. Excellent. I'm now going to merge two questions into one, and you can unscramble it. These have to do.
Like unscrambling apparently.
What's that? You object already.
I was talking about the Leichhardt.
There you go. Okay. Do the candidates have faith in the local government to be able to stop or make serious change with things like WestConnect's Callan Park privatization and If not, how do councillors propose to make a better working relationship between council and the state government? So the flip side of the same question. Can council do anything? And if not, how does council get involved?
Sorry, did I jump in ahead of you? Sorry.
You just did. Go for it.
I would say, I know, I tell other women that all the time.
I know, that on that we have a unified position, I think.
I would say absolutely yes, local government can have a powerful voice. And it doesn't, some of those examples you raise, and as somebody who was very heavily involved in the campaign against WestConnex, I know that just because you don't happen to win the ultimate thing that you're working for doesn't mean it's a waste of time. What we saw with the WestConnex project, for example, is because there was such a fight back against some of those earlier stages that there were better conditions put into the later stages of the project. They're not necessarily followed well by the state government, but they're in there and they're enforceable. We saw things like the Darley Road drill site being taken right off the table because people pushed at the sheer thought of having a construction site in the middle of all those residential areas. We've seen, for example, with the St Peters Interchange Park, I want to put inverted commas around that all the time, a real focus from the Transport for New South Wales now actually checking the toxicity of that park, because for years we've been saying that building a scrappy little park around an interchange road is not a great way to do things, particularly when it's on a toxic landfill. So absolutely you can. In terms of building a better relationship with the state government, whoever it is that happens to be in power, I think that's got to be a strong focus for the new council. And I have to say that, again, going back to some of the changes we've seen in the last few months, it was only in the last few weeks that all councillors had a meeting with the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces, Rod Stokes, to discuss Callan Park. And that's something that hasn't happened in this entire term of council, where all councillors had that audience with the Minister to put forward our view in a respectful manner and start building a case. So absolutely, local government can have an impact.
Okay, go on, John.
Ladies and gentlemen, I recall of the administrator's final report as he was leaving. He said if there's one thing that this merger should deliver, it is a big voice for the Inner West. And it didn't. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how my fellow councillors feel here. I felt for the best part of 4 years, and I felt very frustrated, we had only one voice for 200,000. Constantly, one voice only for 200,000 people. That is not good at the local level. I'm hoping that with fresh, new leadership, with a lot of new councillors on board for the next term, we're going to concentrate on the messaging, on the connection with you as our residents, bringing you into it, the community engagement. We need many voices in the Inner West. And if we're fighting things like Callan Park, WestConnex, the Western Harbour Tunnel, and the many issues that come before us, we need a strong, united voice coming from all of our 202,000 people, not one voice on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you.
Okay, Pip?
I definitely think that local government can make changes, and we've seen that. We've seen so many examples of that. But local governments have to work together, I think, against the state government's agenda. And I think that is really the only way we're going to force this particular state government back. I don't believe that, representations to Rob Stokes is going to save Callan Park. Unfortunately, it will have to be done. But I think we need what is actually happening, which is the Callan Park communities that are involved in the Callan Park campaign, to step up the campaign, and I think that's what they're doing. They're mobilising, and they need to get their voices heard, because the state government really wants to privatise that land, as well as a range of other green open spaces out near Parramatta. Now there's the soft sell approach, which is we just give a little cafe here and a little festival here and a little this here. Now, this really, you know, proper use has to be made of Callan Park, but those communities that have been fighting to protect it know what the proper uses can be. And it may well be that they have got, well, I'm sure that they do have an idea about how some of those historic buildings can be used for the public good. So yes, I think local government on its own, this particular one, it's not going to win anything on its own. It needs to band together with other local governments. Thank you.
Local government should be able to make a difference. I say should be able to, but they have to work with the community to do it. When you're talking about Callan Park, disclaimer, I'm on the executive of Callan Park, but Callan Park, Friends of Callan Park have just collected 5,300 and odd signatures for a petition which was presented to the government to stop changing the Act. Now, if a little group like Friends of Callan Park can collect that many signatures in a few weeks, what power should council have? Council has 200,000 residents behind them, hopefully. They might be on the wrong side behind them, but they do have a whole bank of residents that can support them and that can provide support for the councillors' decisions and to actually go to bat for the council as well. So I think council should make a difference by using the residents.
Just very briefly, I really do believe that council can make a difference working with state government and advocating to state government, but particularly if councillors form a united front and a united front with the community to get the things the community want. West Connects is a great example. There are also examples around the work done to get accessible stations in the inner west. You know, working with our MPs, even if they're not in government, to advocate to state government for the things that we need. I think council has a very strong voice to play, and especially when it joins that voice with the voice of its residents.
Anything new? Anyone with anything new to say? Okay, Vic, let's hear it.
I think it's important when we talk about dealing with the state government, we talk seriously about how we address them, how we deal with them. It's not a matter of just saying no. We have to have alternate solutions. We can't just go, no, you can't have this, no, you can't have that. And some of those approaches were taken in a lot of campaigns, and I think that weakens our position. And just going like a brawl into the beast, I mean, hey, welcome to the club, mate. That's the Inner West Council. That's been really effective for you. You know, we don't want that sort of relationship with the state government. You know, with the West Connects, you know, we lost a lot of great opportunities for our artists. They did all these artist creations along the West Connects. We're the #1 creative council in the world, virtually. We're more creatives here than anywhere. They didn't use any of our artists. We lost opportunities to actually work with them and iron out issues. That is the serious thing where we have to look at it and say, well, okay, you know, if we can't stop this, then we have to have another position where we look where the impacts are and get the community by and say, what do you need? How do we fix it? What's going to make this better for you? And I think that's where a lot of campaigns need to be respectful. Otherwise, we end up like the Inner West Council has been in this term, and not a lot gets done, and a lot of people are left unhappy. Thank you.
I just want to disagree with Vic. I think that it's important to have a backup position that if you can't stop some of these really damaging projects, that you're still getting a lot of positive results for the community along the way. But my ward in particular, in the Balmain ward, we've copped West Connects, which is ongoing. It's an absolute mess. Now we're dealing with the state government trying to privatise Callan Park, and we're looking at the impending Western Harbour Tunnel, which is an absolute disaster for our community on so many levels. They're going to dredge the harbour, and we've just finally reopened Dornies. It's going to be practically unswimmable once they start that work. They're going to be digging underneath us with noise and vibrations that so much of our ward has already had to put up with. And when we're looking at Callan Park as well, look, we have just said no, you can't do this, we're not going to allow it. And we've worked really well collaboratively with the ward councillors in the Balmain ward, with our local member Jamie Parker, and with the Friends of Callan Park. And it's working. I was there to hand over the petition with the Friends of Callan Park last week to the state government, and Jamie Parker's very positive that we may well be able to get a lot of amendments into the bill to have better outcomes for the community, but potentially that won't even get through the two houses, because the community has done so much work with the state member and with the local council to stop it. So I think just saying, oh, we can't say no and we, have to go in with a softly approach, we can't afford to do that, because it's a real disaster for our community if we let these things happen and we don't stop it.
We didn't say softly.
Yes? Everyone's gone for this one? Excellent. Okay, this came from our Facebook watchers. It's the simplest question I've ever heard. Show of hands, which candidate lives in the ward they're standing in? There you go. Thank you, Facebook. Okay, there's so many questions we haven't gotten to. In the interest of appearing democratic, we have time for one, maybe two questions from the floor. Is there anyone who has this amazingly succinct, insightful question that will add value to our communal experience today? Okay, we're trusting you.
Hello. Thank you for all coming today. I just wanted to ask, which councillor candidates would support, that's if there are any that do, would support the outsourcing of, in the future, of any council services or facilities?
I think Mark would like to...
Go for it, Mark.
Look, I've been very keen to actually insource stuff that was outsourced privately. I think that there are many things that the Inner West Council can do, particularly as a larger body. I'm very keen to bring the remaining two aquatic centres back into the council fold, and I think there are some other things that we can look at in the future in terms of bringing things back. I've never been convinced by arguments about outsourcing, and so I'm more keen on bringing work back in, people with proper award wage jobs, proper conditions. I'm old-fashioned Labor.
Yeah, may I make a comment as well? This might be the one area where Labor councillors do feel so strongly that we both need to have a voice here. We are informed by our Labor values. All of the Labor candidates and councillors are unionists, and there is absolutely no question that in-sourced work and not outsourced work is something that we will very strongly fight for. Workers' rights were born through the Labor movement in the Inner West, and we absolutely are committed to retaining those all the way through the future.
Anyone else want to go, Pip?
Yes, I'm in favour of council keeping its assets and taking on more frontline worker staff. So my impression of the amalgamated councils is that a lot of frontline staff were dismissed or given redundancies, and a lot of middle managers and upper managers came in. I think the balance should shift back to frontline staff that are answering phones, that are on the streets, that are doing the work, that people can see what the council's doing for them. I have a young friend who was one of the people at Annette Kellerman that was sacked when COVID lockdown happened. They were just stood down. They were given, I think, an hour of a therapist that they could talked to about the grief that they were going to face because of their loss of income. I mean, it was unbelievable. Of course, outsourcing council facilities means that rates, price for these things goes up, and basically our rates are going to a private consortium, which is not a good thing.
Poor Mal, he's running around and reading bells at the same time. Okay, Vera-Ann, go on.
Very briefly, I might not be on council, but I have had so many residents coming to me because they knew I was on council and complaining about the outsourcing of especially the aquatic centre. It's a very contentious issue in my area, and I would like to see it reversed.
Okay, go on, John.
One thing that the councillors on council know is we have very, very talented staff. The trouble is, with rotating general managers, a council sending incoherent messages and being divisive doesn't help the best performance. And you know that. You run companies, you've been on boards or whatever. And that's where the leadership comes into play. The merger also meant that we lost hundreds of absolutely talented people who have moved on. We lost talented people, some with 30 years experience, very, very strong performance, good management, good technical abilities. We lost those people. And you know how hard it is to retrain and get that experience back again. It's very difficult. But we have highly talented people who do great work, and they will do even better work under better leadership.
Being a bit of an economic rationalist as I am, running a small business, I know that your largest cost in any business is your staff. And be aware that over 55% of council's income goes to paying staff. Each year, council staff's income is actually going up. Council wages are going up 2.5% each year. And what happens is, we have to come back to you and ask you for more money to actually pay all the staff we have. So be aware what we ask for, then we have to pay for. So that's the important thing, and it just drives me crazy when I know that a toilet in a park, which should cost about $200,000, costs $1 million for council to do. And Jim Marston can build you a two-storey house with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms and a double garage in an alfresco area with the marble top and thrown in the air conditioning for $350,000. So be aware of that. We need to do things better in council and be more effective. Thank you.
Okay. Kobi, you...
Yeah, just really quickly, the Greens are really supportive of bringing as many council services as we can in-house. I think it gives you better control over workers' wages and making sure that they're actually paid appropriately and looked after. If we're saving money by outsourcing things and we've got workers who aren't getting paid what they should be, I don't want to see us doing that. The other thing that I think is really important is that we can be more responsive. If we've got our own teams of people going out and, doing work on the trees, doing plantings, working in the aquatic centres, we can actually respond really quickly to things instead of having to go through another sort of level of communication to get things happening, and I think it's better for the community.
I'll just add that wherever we can, I think it's great to have council running its own services, and we have some really strong case studies for that. For example, with our childcare services, we know that the ones that we run have a really high, they're excellent in terms of the quality of the service they provide and in terms of families' satisfaction with that service. As Mark said earlier, it'll be really exciting to see halfway through next year the pools at the Annette Kellerman Aquatic Centre and the Fanny Durack Aquatic Centre come under council management again. There'll always be some occasions where we don't have the skills or resources to do things, but they should be, wherever possible, restricted to one-off things. So, for example, we don't have a whole team of architects for designing buildings and so forth. So if we're needing to do big projects like the Ashfield Aquatic Centre, of course we're going to have to get some expertise in for that. But basic services, wherever we can, it's a great idea to have them in-house.
Have we covered everything? Okay, go for
Well,
it.
just to say, I completely support basic services being in-house, bringing back the pool staff in-house next year is a great result for them because they have suffered in relation to wages and things like that. So, just to put my 2 cents with it.
Okay, Mel, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, living in a council very diversity, cultural diversity. So I just like to have a question on behalf of the resident here. So what's in the new term, if you are chosen to be in the council, so what would you address the multiculturalism in local council? Thank you.
Go on.
Hello, yes. Thanks for that question. It's a great one. I think it's probably worth acknowledging that we don't have a particularly diverse candidature for the Inner West Council, and perhaps what we could do... Sorry.
I'm a candidate with Victor and I'm Greek and I grew up in Norwood and I have a business in Marrickville.
Yes, I'm not debating your particular...
Sorry, there's more candidates than there are on the stage.
We don't have a particular diverse panel. How about that?
There you go.
Thank you. Yes, our ticket, below the heads of the ticket, is also ethnically and culturally diverse, but it is worth acknowledging that at the top of the ticket it's not an especially diverse candidature, and that's worth us sort of acknowledging the elephant in the room there. But we have committed to a multicultural policy from the Labor ticket. We do have a commitment to developing a local anti-racism strategy and also to properly acknowledging the International Day to Eliminate Racial Discrimination and to hold appropriate events on that day, not Harmony Day, which we know is a bastardisation of that particular day. One of the things we'd also really like to do is to deliberately support the increasing diversity of decision-making teams within council, so actively sourcing a diverse talent pool to make those decisions. And with that, particularly, we'd like to support decision-making in the arts and culture space that reflects a greater diversity of our community. And that means providing grant materials in community languages, for example, going around to local businesses that are owned by ethnically diverse community members, and making sure that they know how to participate in grant programs, so that it isn't just confined to people whose first language is English. We do have a genuine commitment to ethnic and cultural diversity within our ticket, and we do have a strong strategy to get us there.
Okay, go on. Good.
Okay, one of the big casualties of the merger has been our multicultural community. Marrickville Council had a vibrant sister city culture with many cities, and they were very active with the Cypriots, with the Taiwanese. We had a sister city in Bethlehem. We had one in Funchal in Portugal, and all those communities felt really bonded by what we were doing. We have special occasions and special days, and we acknowledged them. We were always invited to their special days, and that's gone. It's all gone by the wayside. That's one of the failings of the Inner West Council, and it's probably because it's just too big. So I'm hoping that we refocus back on our multicultural roots, because it is the multicultural people who made this area what it is. And it's no strange thing that everything started in Marrickville. The music is alive in Marrickville, the creatives are in Marrickville. It's that culture that diverse community brings that actually allows that to flourish. Thank you.
Pauline?
Yeah, look, as somebody who is part Indonesian, woman of colour, I feel really strongly about multiculturalism and promoting diversity, and I agree with Vic. I think that was a much stronger focus in the former Marrickville Council, and part of the reason I got involved with the Inner West Multicultural Network, which of course grew out of the Marrickville Multicultural Network, to develop the Racism Not Welcome campaign, was because I felt that we'd lost some of that focus on diversity and multiculturalism that has really been the backbone of the community here. And as somebody who grew up in a very non-diverse area, really protecting that and celebrating that as part of our core identity is really important. So I'd like to see the next council work much more closely with the Inner West Multicultural Network on those strategies, because we have a huge network that we're part of, that we auspice, that has a lot of strength to it, and I don't think we've utilised that in this term of council as effectively as we could have.
Liz?
And can I just add to the things that are being said, a commitment to work in the area of arts and culture with a diverse range of people, you know, diversity in the sense of multiculturalism, encouraging our First Nations artists and encouraging queer artists as well. Definitely a commitment to multiculturalism and diversity across the board.
John?
Around about 70,000 of our population in the Inner West was born overseas. That's 37% of our population. What a tremendous asset we have. And in fact, as we go around the streets each day, that asset has been utilised beautifully in our shopping streets, in cultural programs. It's something that we have tapped into and that we know a lot about. And it's fantastic living in that community. But I would like to say over the last 24 years of my community life, there have been a few councillors that have shown a great commitment to that. I must say that Pauline Lockie has been one of those on council. Not just moving policies and strategies, but actually moving tangible motion. So credit to Pauline on that.
Yeah, this is a particularly multicultural area, and I think council could do more. I think there's a lot of good programs going, but I think more could be done. I mean, I think beyond what's already been said, you know, we've got the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre in the ward that I'm standing in. I think we could do a lot more with them. Why I'm thinking this way is that the debate around an artist collective being able to use a historic villa in Ashfield the other day on council, I found very galling. It really smacked to me of sort of an undercurrent of racism, talking about foreigners and were they allowed to stay, did they have permanent residency, and we can't let our, you know, so there is still an undercurrent. There can be an undercurrent of racism, and that has particularly flared up, especially anti-Asian racism has flared up during this COVID time. I think we've got to recognise that, and I think council can play a big proactive role as the great science, the Standing Against Racism science that Pauline and others initiated. I think we can do more than that. And just one last thing, I was speaking around, talking to my Greek hairdresser yesterday, and she said, I'd like to see that demerger flyer in Greek, because I can tell you a lot of older residents aren't across this issue. So, I mean, there are things like that council can do to bring residents in more. Thank you.
Insights? Okay. We're going to run out of time. I want people to have a potty break before we do the rats in the ranks.
Come on, Lawrence.
Okay. Do it. Go for it.
This Jeff Lee here, ex-bus driver, ex-taxi driver. There's three levels of government in this country: local government, state and federal. Now, local government is the closest to the grassroots. I believe that local government should address the issues of state and federal politics that intersect with the local government residents. Now, for 4 years, I was part of a campaign to oppose the privatisation of the Inner West bus depots, right up to pickets in Yarra. Well, most of us signed petitions, but we had pickets at the depots the last 6 months before they privatised them. The council went as far as passing one pissy little motion which got mentioned in Darcy Byrne's mayoral minute in August 2018, allocated 80,000 to the West Connects research program, not even one banner, poster or sticker to assist in saving private transport. Now, I'm not looking back, I'm looking forward. For the next 18 months, there's no light rail. There'll be buses running around empty, just like they are when they shut down the suburban rail lines. You people have to address how public transport fits in. Most of you are home owners and drive private cars and venture against WestConnect. It was only Jamie Parker that stood up over the removal of 18 bus stops on the 440 route. He saved 9 after I went round every shop and pub in Rozelle and got petitions, but he didn't save another 9, including the Denison and Darling Street or Balmain Road one, where everyone now has to walk half a kilometre to a bus stop. Look at what the plans are for the next 18 months for light rail. Work out how it can be integrated into the existing bus services and put a bloody submission in so the government doesn't keep cutting staff under privatised public transport and doesn't keep duplicating existing services so the fares go up. Thank
Jefferson,
you.
we'll take that as a comment and not as a question. Mal violated my #1 rule, never hand a mic to someone in the audience. And that was fascinating. Thank you, Jefferson. It was great. We brought back the old days. So, no, I love you, Jefferson. So, on that note, okay, I think that we are going to get up and stretch, and the candidates will be around if you want to duke it out with them, and we're going to set up the film, and we'll show you how real ratbag politics are conducted in the inner west. Thank you so much to all of our candidates for coming in. Thank you to the audience for participating.